My name is Annabelle, and at 33 years old, I thought I knew what it meant to trust family. For 5 years, my husband Matthew and I built a beautiful life in Chicago, both working hard and saving for our dream home. We had a good marriage, a stable life, and a clear plan for our future. Then came that phone call about his sister Amanda and her sudden financial trouble. Matthew was always protective of Amanda, so when he asked for help, I agreed without hesitation. How could I have known that single decision would unravel everything I thought I knew about family, trust, and the people closest to us? If you are watching this video, let me know where you are watching from, and drop a like and subscribe if you have ever had that gut feeling when something just does not add up in your family. I need to start by telling you a bit about myself and my husband. I have always been careful with money. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Michigan taught me the value of $1 early on. My parents worked incredibly hard to provide for our family, and I watched them budget meticulously for everything from groceries to holiday gifts. Those lessons stuck with me into adulthood. I majored in finance in college and landed a job as a financial analyst at a respected firm in Chicago after graduation. Numbers make sense to me. They are reliable, predictable, and honest, in a way people sometimes are not. Matthew is different. He works as a marketing executive for a technology company and has always been more spontaneous with his spending. He is generous to a fault, especially when it comes to his family. He grew up in a household where money was used to show love and affection. His parents, Harold and Patricia, never hesitated to buy their children whatever they wanted, whether they needed it or not. When we married 5 years ago, we agreed to compromise on our financial approaches. We maintained separate accounts for personal spending, but shared responsibility for household expenses and savings. We were doing well enough to put away a significant amount each month toward our dream of buying a house and eventually starting a family. We were not wealthy by any stretch, but we were comfortable and secure. Then there was Amanda, Matthew's younger sister. At 27, she was still trying to find her place in the world. In the 4 years I had known her, she had changed jobs at least 6 times. She had been a barista, a retail associate, a receptionist, a dog walker, a social media manager, and most recently, an assistant at a real estate office. None of these positions lasted more than 8 months. Despite her inconsistent employment history, Amanda always seemed to live well beyond her means. Her Instagram feed was a carefully curated display of expensive brunches, designer clothes, and weekend getaways to places like Miami and Las Vegas. Every family gathering became a showcase for her latest luxury purchase. "Do you like my new bag?" she asked at last Thanksgiving, pulling out a purse that I recognized as costing at least $1,000. I know I should not have splurged, but I totally deserved it after dealing with my awful boss all month. I nodded politely while mentally calculating how many hours she would have needed to work to afford such an extravagance. The math simply did not add up. There had been warning signs of Amanda's financial irresponsibility for years. She frequently borrowed money from her parents, always with elaborate stories about unexpected expenses and promises to pay them back soon. As far as I knew, those repayments rarely materialized. Matthew's parents never seemed bothered by this. "She is still finding herself," Patricia would say with a dismissive wave. "When she gets settled in the right career, everything will fall into place." I tried to stay neutral about Amanda's behavior. After all, she was not my sister, and her financial choices did not directly affect us. I reminded myself that every family has different dynamics, and not everyone shares my conservative approach to money. But then came that Tuesday evening in April, when Matthew called me from work, his voice tense with worry. "We need to talk about Amanda," he said. "She is in serious trouble." I felt a knot form in my stomach, as I assured him we would figure it out together. Little did I know that this was just the beginning of a situation that would test not only our finances, but the very foundation of our marriage. That evening, Matthew came home with a worried expression that I had rarely seen on his face. He barely greeted me before dropping his briefcase by the door and collapsing onto our living room sofa. I joined him, placing my hand on his knee in silent support. "Amanda called me this afternoon," he began, running a hand through his hair. "She is in serious financial trouble, and she needs our help." I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm and open-minded. "What kind of trouble?" "She co-signed a loan for her best friend Stephanie about a year ago. $15,000. Stephanie had been making the payments regularly until 3 months ago. Then, she suddenly disappeared." "Disappeared?" I repeated, my analyst brain immediately flagging this as unusual. "What do you mean?" "She stopped responding to Amanda's calls and texts. Her social media accounts are gone. Amanda went to her apartment, and the landlord said she moved out without notice. Now the bank is coming after Amanda for the remaining $12,000 on the loan." I tried to process this information. Why would Amanda co-sign such a large loan for a friend? That is a huge financial risk. Matthew sighed. "Stephanie was her roommate in college. They have been best friends for years. Apparently, Stephanie needed the money for some medical expenses that her insurance would not cover. Amanda wanted to help." Something about this story felt off, but I continued asking questions. Has Amanda filed a police report? If this Stephanie person truly disappeared, that seems concerning beyond just the financial aspect. She has not had time to deal with the police yet. The bank is threatening legal action if she does not start making payments immediately. Her credit score is already dropping, and she is worried about getting evicted if this affects her ability to pay rent. "Do you have any documentation about this loan? The original agreement? Payment history? Anything?" Matthew shifted uncomfortably. "No, Amanda did not send anything. She just called me crying, saying she did not know what to do." "So, all we have is what Amanda told you over the phone?" I clarified, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Yes, but she is my sister, Annabelle. Why would she lie about something like this?" I chose my next words carefully. "I am not saying she is lying. I just think we should get all the facts before we commit to helping with such a large sum of money. $12,000 is a significant portion of our house savings." Matthew's expression hardened slightly. "So, you do not trust my sister?" "That is not what I said," I countered. "I would want documentation for any major financial decision, regardless of who was involved." "There is no time for all that," Matthew insisted. "If Amanda does not make a payment soon, her credit will be ruined, and the bank could sue her. She is family, Annabelle. We have to help her." I could feel the conversation sliding into dangerous territory. On one hand, I did not want to appear cold or uncaring about a family member in need. On the other hand, every instinct I had was telling me to proceed with caution. "What if we compromise?" I suggested. "Instead of giving her the whole $12,000 at once, we could send her $3,000 now to cover the immediate payments. That gives us time to get more information and figure out a long-term plan." Matthew seemed to relax slightly. "That could work. $3,000 would at least keep the bank off her back for now. And I would like to meet with Amanda in person to discuss this," I added. "If we are going to help her financially, we should all be on the same page about expectations and repayment." "Fine," Matthew agreed, though his tone suggested he found my conditions unnecessary. "I will tell her we will send the money tomorrow and that we will all get together soon to talk about next steps." That night, as Matthew slept peacefully beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. I could not shake the feeling that something was not right about this situation. Why would someone abandon their life and disappear over a loan that they had been faithfully paying for months? Why did Amanda not have any documentation about such an important financial arrangement? And why did Matthew seem so resistant to asking reasonable questions? As a financial analyst, I had seen how money problems could tear families apart. I had also seen how blind trust could lead to devastating consequences. But this was not just about money. This was about my marriage and the delicate balance of trust, respect, and boundaries that kept it strong. I eventually drifted off to sleep, telling myself that I was being overly cautious. Amanda was family after all, and family looks out for each other, right? Little did I know how that simple belief would be tested in the days to come. The next morning, I transferred $3,000 to Amanda's account through our banking app. I included a brief message. Here to help with your situation. How are you holding up? Let us know if you need anything else. Love, Annabelle, and Matthew. I expected an immediate response. A thank you text, a phone call, something acknowledging our significant financial help, but my phone remained silent throughout the workday. That evening, I mentioned it to Matthew. Have you heard from Amanda? She has not responded to our transfer yet. He shrugged while heating up leftover pasta for dinner. She is probably just really stressed about the whole situation. I will give her a call tomorrow if we have not heard anything. $3,000 is a lot of money, Matthew. A simple thank you text takes 10 seconds. Not everyone obsessively checks their banking app like you do, he replied with a small laugh that felt dismissive. She will get in touch when she can. I let it go, but the silence continued to bother me. One day passed, then two. By the end of the week, we still had not received any acknowledgement from Amanda about the money we had sent. I really think you should call her, I told Matthew that Friday evening. This is starting to feel strange. She is really stressed, Annabelle, Matthew defended. She is probably just focusing on sorting everything out with the bank. I nodded, not wanting to push the issue further and cause an argument. But the knot of unease in my stomach was growing larger. Then, 2 days later, while scrolling through Instagram, I came across a post from Amanda. My thumb froze on the screen as I took in what I was seeing. It was a photo of an elaborate seafood tower from Morton's, an expensive steakhouse in the city. The caption read, "Sunday fun day with the girls. Sometimes you just need to treat yourself." The timestamp showed it had been posted just 3 hours ago. The meal easily would have cost several $100s. I kept scrolling through her recent posts and felt my heart sink when I saw another photo from the previous day. Amanda was posing with a new handbag, a designer piece that I recognized as costing around $2,000. The caption, "Treating myself after a stressful week. New purse. Who dis?" I took screenshots of both posts and showed them to Matthew when he returned from his morning run. Does this look like someone who is stressed about paying off a $12,000 loan? I asked, trying to keep accusation out of my voice. Matthew glanced at the photos with a frown. The bag is probably fake, and the dinner was most likely paid for by one of her friends. Matthew, that purse is not fake. The stitching details are exact. And even if someone else paid for dinner, why is she out celebrating when she just had to borrow $3,000 from us for an urgent debt? I do not know, Annabelle, he said, his voice rising slightly. Why are you so determined to think the worst of my sister? I am not thinking the worst. I am looking at the evidence in front of me and asking reasonable questions. Matthew walked away, effectively ending the conversation, but I was not ready to let this go. While he showered, I began my own quiet investigation. I searched for Stephanie on social media, trying various spellings of the name and combinations with Amanda's name. I could not find anyone who seemed to fit the description of Amanda's supposed best friend and former roommate. I checked Amanda's friend list on Facebook and Instagram, scrolling through hundreds of names, but no Stephanie appeared. When Matthew emerged from the bathroom, I tried a different approach. Tell me about Stephanie, I said casually. Have you ever met her? He paused, towel around his neck. No, I have not. Amanda went to college in California, remember? I only saw her during holidays. But they have been best friends for years, right? Surely she must have visited Amanda here in Chicago at some point, or been mentioned at family gatherings? Matthew's brow furrowed. I do not know, Annabelle. I guess Amanda did not talk about her much. Do not you find that odd? That Amanda never mentioned her best friend to her family, then co-signed a huge loan for her, and now this person has completely disappeared? What exactly are you suggesting? Matthew asked, his tone cooling significantly. I am not suggesting anything. I am just trying to understand the situation before we send more money. The tension between us grew over the next few days. Small disagreements escalated into arguments, with Matthew accusing me of distrusting his family and me frustrated by his unwillingness to consider that something might be off about Amanda's story. By the end of the week, I had reached a decision. If Matthew would not ask the hard questions, I would. I waited until he left for a Saturday golf game with colleagues, then picked up my phone and dialed Amanda's number. I need to know the truth, I whispered to myself as the phone rang. For all our sakes. I had prepared for this call, jotting down specific questions I wanted to ask and points I needed to clarify. My heart pounded as the phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Amanda did not pick up. I waited 15 minutes and tried again. This time she answered on the 4th ring. Hello? Her voice sounded surprised, perhaps even a little wary. Hi, Amanda. It is Annabelle, I said, keeping my tone light and friendly. How are you doing? Oh, hi. I am okay. Just busy with work and stuff. Is everything all right? Is Matthew okay? Matthew is fine. He is out golfing with some colleagues today. I just wanted to check in on you personally. We have been worried. That is nice of you, she said, her words coming out slightly too quickly. I am managing. It has been really stressful, but I am dealing with it. I took a deep breath. We sent you $3,000 last week. I just wanted to make sure you received it and to see how things are going with the loan situation. There was a pause before she answered. Yes, I got it. Thank you. That was really helpful. Everything is still pretty difficult, though. I can imagine, I said. Would you mind if I ask you a few questions about what happened? Matthew and I want to help, but we need to understand the situation better. Sure, I guess, she replied, though her tone suggested reluctance. Could you tell me Stephanie's full name? And where she was living before she disappeared? Another pause. Stephanie Miller. She was living in Wicker Park before she left. And what did she do for work? She worked at a bank, Amanda answered quickly. Then, actually no, it was a restaurant. She was trying to get into banking but was working at a restaurant to pay bills. The inconsistency made my stomach tighten. Which restaurant? One of those downtown places. I do not remember the name right now. I decided to change tactics. Amanda, I saw your Instagram posts from this weekend. The dinner at Morton's looked amazing, and that new purse is beautiful. Valentino, right? The silence on the other end of the line stretched uncomfortably long. That was. My friend treated me to dinner because I have been so stressed. And the bag was a gift. A $2,000 gift? Right after you needed to borrow $3,000 from us for an urgent debt? Look, her voice hardened. What I do is my business. Matthew understands my situation. Does he? I pressed. Because we sent you money to help with a loan payment, and a few days later you are posting about expensive restaurants and designer purchases. It does not add up, Amanda. You are not my mother, Annabelle, she snapped. I do not have to explain myself to you. I took another deep breath, deciding to be direct. Amanda, is there really a Stephanie? Did you co-sign a loan that went bad, or are you using our money for something else? The line went silent for so long that I checked my phone to see if the call had dropped. Then I heard a muffled sob. Amanda? I said. There is no Stephanie, she finally whispered, her voice breaking. I made her up. I sat down on the edge of our bed, a wave of dizziness washing over me. You made her up? So there is no loan co-signing situation at all? No, she admitted, still crying. I took out the loan myself. I have been having problems with money. I needed to pay some things off, and I knew Matthew would help if I asked, but I did not want him to know how bad things have gotten. What kinds of problems? I asked, though I already had my suspicions. I shop when I am stressed, and I started gambling online during the pandemic. It was just for fun at first, but then I started losing, and I kept thinking I could win it back. Her words tumbled out now. The loan was supposed to help me clear my credit card debt, but then I used some of it to try to win money back, and things just got worse. I tried to process what I was hearing. How much do you actually owe, Amanda? She hesitated. More than just that loan. I owe money to a few credit cards, some to friends. I also told Mom and Dad I needed money for graduate school application fees last year, but that was not true either. Does anyone else in the family know about this? I asked. No, she said quickly. And you cannot tell them, especially not Matthew. He has always looked up to me, thought I had my life together. If he finds out I have been lying. Amanda, I cannot keep this from my husband. We sent you money based on a completely fabricated story. Please, Annabelle. Her voice turned desperate. If you tell Matthew, I will just say you misunderstood. I will tell him you are making this up because you have always been jealous of my relationship with him. I felt like I had been slapped. Are you threatening me? I am just telling you what will happen. Who do you think he will believe? His wife of 5 years? Or the sister he has known his entire life? Before I could respond, the line went dead. Amanda had hung up on me. I sat frozen, phone still pressed to my ear, feeling like the floor had dropped out from under me. My sister-in-law had not only lied about needing financial help, she had threatened to turn my husband against me if I exposed her deception. The sound of the garage door opening jolted me back to reality. Matthew was home from golf, hours earlier than expected. I had only minutes to decide what to do with the disturbing truth I had just uncovered. My hands were shaking as I heard Matthew's footsteps coming up the stairs. I took several deep breaths, trying to calm myself and organize my thoughts. How do you tell someone that their beloved sister has been lying and manipulating them? Annabelle? Matthew called as he entered our bedroom. His smile faded when he saw my face. What is wrong? You look like you have seen a ghost. We need to talk, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. It is about Amanda. Matthew set down his golf bag and sat beside me on the bed. What about her? Did something happen? I called her. While you were gone, I began, watching his expression shift from concern to annoyance. You went behind my back? He asked, an edge creeping into his voice. I needed answers, Matthew. Things were not adding up, and you were not willing to ask the questions. So, what supposedly did not add up? What answers did you need so badly that you could not wait for me? I took another deep breath. I talked to Amanda about the loan situation, about Stephanie, and his tone was defensive now, arms crossed over his chest. There is no Stephanie, Matthew. There never was. Amanda made her up. He stared at me in disbelief. What are you talking about? Why would she make up a person? Because she needed money, but not for the reason she told you. She took out the loan herself, for her own expenses. She has been struggling with online gambling and compulsive shopping. That is where our $3,000 went, not to any loan payment. Matthew stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. Are you seriously accusing my sister of being a liar and a scammer, based on one phone call? I am telling you what she told me herself, I insisted. She admitted everything. No. He shook his head firmly. You must have misunderstood. Or maybe she was joking and you took it seriously. Amanda would not lie about something like this. She was not joking, Matthew. And I did not misunderstand. She confessed, then threatened me not to tell you. She said if I did, she would claim I made it all up because I am jealous of her. Maybe she had a reason to think that. He shot back. You have always been critical of Amanda, always questioning her choices, judging her lifestyle. I felt a flash of hurt at his words, but I pressed on. This is not about me being critical. This is about her lying to get money from us. Look at her social media posts from this weekend. I showed him the screenshots again. She is using our money to buy luxury items and eat at expensive restaurants while claiming to be in financial distress. How do you explain that? Social media is not real life, Annabelle. People post all kinds of things that do not reflect reality. Then explain why she could not tell me where this supposed best friend worked, why she changed her story mid-sentence, why she hung up on me when I pressed for details. Matthew paced the room, running his hands through his hair in frustration. I do not know. Maybe she was flustered because you were interrogating her like a criminal. I realized we were getting nowhere. Matthew was too emotionally invested to see the situation clearly. I needed concrete evidence. I recorded our conversation, I admitted quietly. His head snapped up. You what? I had a feeling she might not be truthful, so I recorded the call to protect myself. I know that sounds calculating, but I needed to be sure I had proof of whatever she told me. I cannot believe you would do that, Matthew said, his voice low with anger. That is my sister, Annabelle, my family. I am your family too, I reminded him. Please, just listen to the recording before you decide I am the villain here. Reluctantly, he sat down as I played the audio from my phone. I watched his face as he listened to Amanda's confession, saw the moment disbelief gave way to shock, then hurt, then anger. When the recording ended, Matthew sat in silence, head bowed, hands clasped tightly together. I need to call her, he finally said. Are you sure that is a good idea right now? You are upset. I need to hear her admit it to me directly, he insisted, already dialing her number. Amanda answered on the second ring, her voice cheerful until Matthew identified himself. I could only hear his side of the conversation, but it was enough to understand that she initially tried to deny everything. Stop lying, Amanda, Matthew said firmly. I heard the recording. I know there is no Stephanie. I know about the gambling and the shopping. I know you lied to get money from us. There was a long pause, as she apparently changed tactics. That is not an excuse, Matthew responded, his voice tight with emotion. We all have stress. We all have problems. We do not all lie to family and take their money under false pretenses. Another pause. No, Amanda. This is not something we can just move past. You need help, professional help, and you need to pay back the money you took from us, and apparently from Mom and Dad too. The conversation continued for several more minutes, with Amanda clearly crying on the other end. When Matthew finally hung up, he looked exhausted and devastated. She admitted everything, he said quietly. She has a gambling problem. She is in debt to multiple people. She has been lying to all of us for years. I reached for his hand, but he pulled away. I need some time to process this, he said, standing up. I am going for a drive. Matthew, please, let us talk about this. Not right now, Annabelle. I cannot believe she would do this, and I cannot believe I did not see it. After he left, I sat alone in our bedroom, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. I had uncovered the truth, but at what cost? Matthew was hurt and angry. His family was in crisis, and our marriage had just been tested in a way I never anticipated. I packed an overnight bag and called my friend Samantha. Can I stay with you for a few days? I asked. Matthew and I need some space. When Matthew returned hours later, I told him my decision. I think we both need time to process everything that has happened. I will be at Samantha's if you need me. He nodded, not objecting. I understand. I need time too. As I drove to Samantha's apartment, tears blurred my vision. I had done the right thing by uncovering the truth, but it felt like everything was falling apart anyway. I wondered if our marriage would survive this, or if Amanda's deception had created a rift too deep to repair. She actually threatened to turn Matthew against you? Samantha asked, handing me a cup of tea as we sat in her living room that evening. That is seriously manipulative. I nodded, wiping away fresh tears. I know Matthew loves me, but Amanda has been his sister for 35 years. Their bond goes deep. But you have evidence, Samantha pointed out. She confessed on that recording. Yes, but this is not just about proving who is right. This is about our marriage and his family. Even if Matthew believes me now, this situation has exposed a crack in our foundation. He did not trust my instincts. He was willing to think I was being jealous or petty, rather than considering his sister might be lying. Samantha sipped her tea thoughtfully. Give him time. This is a huge shock for him. He is probably dealing with a lot of guilt for not seeing the signs himself. Over the next few days, I tried to focus on work while giving Matthew the space he needed, but I could not stop thinking about Amanda's situation. If she truly had a gambling addiction, Sending her money without addressing the underlying problem would only enable her destructive behavior. I decided to do some research. During my lunch breaks, I read articles about gambling addiction, learning about its progressive nature, the common signs, and treatment options. The more I read, the more pieces fell into place. Amanda's job hopping, her inconsistent financial stories, her expensive purchases despite limited income. All classic signs of someone hiding an addiction. My investigation did not stop there. 3 days after moving to Samantha's, I received a text from Brittany, a mutual friend who had been a bridesmaid at our wedding. "Heard you and Matthew are having some issues. Everything okay?" I was surprised. We had not told anyone except Samantha about our separation. "Who told you that?" I texted back. "Amanda mentioned something," came the reply. "Said you two were fighting about money." I called Brittany immediately, curious about what Amanda had been saying. Our conversation revealed more than I expected. "I probably should have told you this sooner," Brittany admitted. "But Amanda borrowed $2,000 from me last year. Said she needed it for a deposit on a new apartment after her roommate bailed. She promised to pay me back in a month, but I have not seen a penny." "Did she ever mention a roommate named Stephanie?" I asked. "No," she said her roommate was called Rachel. "But I never met her. Come to think of it, I am not sure Amanda ever had a roommate at all." This was another piece of the puzzle. How many people had Amanda borrowed from using fabricated stories? How deep did this deception go? With Brittany's permission, I decided to approach Patricia, Matthew's mother. I called her on the 4th day of my stay at Samantha's, carefully framing my questions. "Patricia, I am sorry to bother you with this, but I am concerned about Amanda. Has she ever asked you and Harold for financial help?" Patricia's sigh said volumes before she even spoke. "Many times, dear. We have always tried to support her. She is our daughter, after all. May I ask what reasons she gave for needing money?" "Various things over the years. Car repairs, medical bills, security deposits. Most recently, it was for graduate school application fees and preparation courses. Must have been about $10,000 over the past year alone." My heart sank. "Did she ever show you any documentation for these expenses? Receipts? Acceptance letters to programs? Anything?" A long pause followed. "No, I suppose she did not. Harold and I just took her at her word." "Are you suggesting she was not truthful with us?" I chose my next words carefully. "I think Amanda might be struggling with some issues that money alone cannot fix." "Has she ever mentioned gambling or shown signs of compulsive spending?" Another pause. "Now that you mention it, she did become very invested in online poker during the pandemic. Harold thought it was just a phase. But she does seem to always have new clothes and accessories, despite complaining about being broke." By the end of our conversation, Patricia was asking her own questions, connecting dots that had been there all along. I promised to keep her updated, and suggested that she and Harold hold off on giving Amanda any more money until we had a clearer picture of what was going on. That evening, I called a gambling addiction counseling center. The specialist I spoke with was compassionate but direct. "Family members often enable gambling addiction without realizing it," she explained. "By repeatedly bailing out the gambler, you are actually making it easier for them to continue the destructive behavior." "What can we do to help her?" I asked. "A family intervention is often effective. Gather everyone who has been affected by her behavior. Present the evidence calmly but firmly. Offer a clear path to treatment, but also establish boundaries. Make it clear there will be no more financial help unless she agrees to get professional support." Armed with this advice and the information I had gathered, I began drafting a plan. We would need to involve Matthew's parents, confront Amanda with all the evidence, and present her with treatment options. If she refused, we would need to be prepared to cut off financial support and potentially pursue legal action to recover the money she had taken under false pretenses. On the 5th day of our separation, Matthew called. His voice sounded tired, but clearer than it had been during our argument. "Can we talk?" he asked simply. "Of course. I replied, relief flooding through me. We met at a neutral location, a quiet cafe near Samantha's apartment. Matthew looked like he had not been sleeping well, with dark circles under his eyes and a certain heaviness to his movements. "I owe you an apology," he said after we had settled at a corner table with our coffees. "You were right about Amanda. I should have trusted your instincts. I should have been willing to ask the hard questions myself." "I understand why you did not want to believe it," I told him. "She is your sister. You love her." "Yes, but you are my wife. We are partners." I let my protective instinct toward Amanda override my commitment to our partnership. That was wrong of me. I reached across the table and took his hand. "I have been doing some research about gambling addiction, and I have spoken with others who Amanda has borrowed from. This goes deeper than just us, Matthew. Your parents have been giving her money for supposed graduate school that does not exist. Our friend Brittany loaned her $2,000 for a fictional roommate situation." Matthew closed his eyes briefly. How did I not see this? Addiction is powerful. People become very skilled at hiding it and manipulating others. This is not your fault. I shared my findings with him, including the advice from the addiction counselor. To my relief, Matthew was receptive to the intervention plan. "You are right," he said. "Giving her more money without addressing the real problem would just be enabling her. We need to help Amanda the right way, even if that means tough love." We spent the next 2 hours refining the plan. Matthew would contact his parents to arrange a family meeting. I would compile all the evidence, including the recorded confession, social media posts, and testimonies from others Amanda had borrowed from. We would research treatment facilities and have information ready to present as an option. "I miss you," Matthew said as we prepared to leave. "Will you come home?" I nodded, feeling the weight of the past week lifting slightly. Yes, we should face this together. As we drove home separately, I reflected on how this crisis had both damaged and strengthened our marriage. We had been pushed to a breaking point, but were now finding our way back to each other with a new level of understanding and commitment. The road ahead would not be easy, but at least we would be walking it side by side. The family intervention was scheduled for Saturday afternoon at Matthew's parents' home. Patricia and Harold had been briefed on what we had discovered, and though initially shocked and defensive, they eventually came to accept the evidence we presented. They agreed that continuing to give Amanda money without addressing her gambling problem would only make things worse. Matthew and I arrived early to help prepare. The atmosphere was tense, with Patricia periodically wiping away tears and Harold pacing the living room, his face a mask of contained anger and hurt. "Are we doing the right thing?" Patricia asked as we arranged chairs in a circle. "This feels so confrontational." "It is not about attacking Amanda," I assured her. "It is about showing her that we all love her enough to tell her the truth and help her get the support she needs." Amanda arrived 20 minutes late, looking confused when she saw all of us gathered. She was dressed immaculately as always, with designer sunglasses perched on top of her head and a new-looking leather jacket that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. "What is going on?" she asked, her gaze darting between our serious faces. "Is this some kind of surprise party?" "Please sit down, Amanda," Harold said, gesturing to the empty chair in our circle. "We need to talk to you about something important." Amanda's casual demeanor faded as she slowly took her seat, clutching her purse tightly on her lap like a shield. I had been designated as the person to lead the discussion, being the least emotionally involved and the one with the most complete understanding of the situation. Taking a deep breath, I began. "Amanda, we have asked you here today because we are concerned about you. All of us love you and want what is best for you, which is why we can no longer ignore what has been happening." "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice already defensive. I laid out the facts as gently but firmly as possible. The fictitious Stephanie, the loan that was not for a friend, the gambling that had spiraled out of control, the pattern of borrowing money from family and friends with no intention of repaying it, the lies about graduate school, roommates, and other fictional expenses. As I spoke, Amanda's expressions cycled through surprise, indignation, and defiance. When I finished, she immediately went on the offensive. "This is ridiculous. You are all ganging up on me because of what? Some misunderstandings? So I borrowed some money. Everyone does that sometimes. It does not mean I have a problem." Matthew leaned forward. "Amanda, we have evidence. We know about the online gambling. We know about the shopping addiction. We know you have been lying to all of us." "Evidence? What evidence?" she challenged. Without warning, Matthew played the recording of our phone conversation, where Amanda clearly admitted there was no Stephanie and confessed to her gambling and shopping issues. The color drained from Amanda's face as her own voice filled the room. When the recording ended, she looked trapped and desperate. "You recorded me?" she whispered, looking at me with betrayal in her eyes. "Is that even legal?" "This is not about legality, Amanda," Harold interjected, his voice stern but sad. "This is about the fact that you have been systematically lying to your entire family to fund a gambling addiction and a lifestyle you cannot afford." "It is not like that," she protested weakly. "Then what is it like?" Patricia asked, tears streaming down her face. "Please help us understand, because from where we are sitting, it looks like you have been taking advantage of our love and trust for years." Faced with the united front of her family and the irrefutable evidence, Amanda's carefully constructed facade finally crumbled. She buried her face in her hands and began to sob. "I did not mean for it to get this bad," she cried. "It started small, just a few games online during lockdown when I was bored and lonely. Then I won a couple of times, and it felt so good. But then I started losing, and I kept thinking I just needed one big win to fix everything." Through her tears, Amanda revealed the true extent of her problem. She owed nearly $50,000 to various creditors, including banks, credit card companies, payday loan services, friends, and family. She had been juggling minimum payments, using new loans to pay off old ones, all while continuing to gamble in hopes of a windfall that never came. "I feel so ashamed," she admitted, looking smaller and more vulnerable than I had ever seen her. "I kept thinking I could handle it on my own, that I could win it all back before anyone found out how bad things had gotten." Harold, who had been mostly silent, finally spoke. "Why did not you come to us for help? Not for money, but for actual help with the addiction. We are your family, Amanda. We would have supported you through this." "I was too embarrassed," she whispered. "Everyone always saw me as the successful one, the one who had everything together. I could not admit that my life was falling apart because of something so stupid." This was our opening. I gently presented the treatment plan we had researched. "There is a residential program for gambling addiction that has excellent success rates," I explained, handing her the brochure. "It is a 30-day program with continued outpatient support afterward. They can help you develop strategies to manage the addiction and work through the underlying issues that might be fueling it. They also offer financial counseling," Matthew added, "to help you create a plan for addressing your debts responsibly." Amanda looked at the brochure, then at each of us in turn. "I cannot afford this. I can barely make my rent." "We will help with the cost of treatment," Patricia said firmly. "But that is the only financial help you will receive from now on. No more loans, no more bailouts. Not until you complete the program and demonstrate real commitment to changing these behaviors. And we expect gradual repayment of the money you have borrowed," Harold added. "It may take years, and that is okay, but there needs to be accountability." Amanda looked cornered, frightened. "What if I say no? What if I do not want to go to this program?" Matthew's voice was gentle but resolute. "Then we stop enabling you. No more money, no more rescuing you from financial crises. And we might need to consider legal action to recover what you have taken under false pretenses." "We do not want to do that, Amanda. We want to help you recover. But that can only happen if you want it too." The room fell silent as Amanda absorbed our words. For a long moment, I thought she might refuse, might storm out, and cut us all off rather than admit she needed help. Then, almost imperceptibly, she nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "I will go." The relief in the room was palpable. Patricia moved to embrace her daughter, and Harold wiped away tears he had been trying to hide. Matthew reached for my hand, squeezing it in silent gratitude. Annabelle figured out what was happening when all of us, including me, were blind to it, Matthew said to his sister. She found a solution when we could not even see the problem. I hope someday you will thank her for that. Amanda looked at me. Really looked at me perhaps for the first time. I am sorry for what I said to you on the phone. About turning Matthew against you. That was the addiction talking. The desperate part of me that would say anything to keep the secret going. I understand, I told her, and I meant it. Addiction is a disease. It makes people do and say things they would not normally do. The next few hours were spent making concrete plans. Amanda would enter the treatment program the following Monday. Matthew's parents would help with the cost, but would document everything as a loan to be repaid gradually. We set up a schedule for regular family meetings after her treatment to ensure accountability and continued support. By the time we left, a fragile sense of hope had replaced the tension and anger that had filled the house when we arrived. Amanda had a long road ahead of her, but at least now she would not be walking it alone or in the shadows of deception. 6 months later, I can report that Amanda completed the 30-day program and continues with outpatient therapy twice a week. She found a steady job as an administrative assistant and has stuck with it for 3 months so far. She has repaid $500 of what she owes us, sending small payments each month as promised. Our relationship with her remains complicated. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. But we see genuine effort on her part, and that counts for a lot. As for Matthew and me, this crisis ultimately strengthened our marriage. We learned the importance of trusting each other's instincts, of presenting a united front when facing family challenges, and of setting healthy boundaries even with the people we love most. I do not know if we will ever get all our money back, but I do know we saved someone important from a path of self-destruction. We chose the harder road of truth and accountability over the easier path of enabling and avoiding conflict. It was painful, messy, and at times it threatened to break us. But in the end, it was absolutely the right choice. Sometimes, true love is not giving everything away to make someone happy in the moment. Sometimes, true love is having the courage to say no, to set necessary boundaries, and to insist on truth even when it hurts. If you have been struggling with a similar situation in your family, please know that you are not alone. Addiction affects millions of families, and it thrives in secrecy and shame. The first step toward healing is bringing the truth into the light, however painful that might be. Have you ever had to confront a difficult truth in your family? How did you handle it? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that setting boundaries with family is not just okay, it is sometimes the most loving thing you can do. Thank you for listening, and remember that healing always begins with truth.